Phil Schaap. I'm curator of Jazz at Lincoln Center. And I've been trying to give some explanation to why jazz music exists and why it first was played and came to be in the city of New Orleans. And I've been doing some of these little short talks about the colonial period. And I basically have explained to you, dear people, that New Orleans was French, was Spanish, was British, and has a jumble of colonial background that no other place in the New World has. And I'm suggesting to you to focus on that and realize that that's part of the reason why jazz's birthplace is New Orleans. But I'm ambitious. I want you to focus on some other things and unfortunately return to the ever-present stain on our colonial heritage and indeed the first century of our nation, slavery. Slaves were brought in from Africa and they did the work, but they also were governed. The different colonial powers had to make up rules to control the slaves. And everybody was a little bit different about it. It's kind of a nasty topic, isn't it? Like take the English. You know, they settled places like Virginia and North Carolina, and they brought in slaves to raise the sugar and the cotton and what have you. And they noticed that the Africans liked percussion. But they also noticed that it was more than music. It was communication. And it was in a language that the British overseers didn't understand. So they got scared because they, they might be saying, let's kill them tonight. So they outlawed the Africans from practicing their drums and indeed their culture. And that was a solution to their problem of keeping the slaves controlled and getting them to do their work. And there are many other practices, and as I say, it's all nasty business, and it's a sorry history that I'm reporting to you. But in New Orleans, there was a different set of practices. The goal here relates to, first of all, the need of the slave owners to convert their slaves to Christianity. That's an ever-present thought. You got to think about why. It's about rationalizing doing something wrong. Now, I wasn't alive in the 17th and 18th and 19th centuries, so I can't really speak for the slave owners, but I have a funny feeling that since slavery doesn't exist, at least some of them knew it was wrong. And they also liked the fact that they had slaves and they didn't have to work as hard and they were rich. So they rationalized while they gave the slaves from Africa a very hard time. They gave them heaven by converting their paganism to Christianity. That was a big goal. All of the colonies tried to convert the Africans to Christianity. Now, of course, it was Catholicism in French and Spanish colonies and Protestant sects in the UK and other countries' colonies. But the big goal was to protect yourself from being blamed later after you die about enslaving another soul by giving them heaven. So making Christians out of the slaves becomes part of the drill of owning them. And they did it differently in New Orleans. The way they did it in New Orleans was to let the slaves still be African as long as they did it in the name of the Christian Lord on the Christian Sabbath, which is Sunday. And long, long ago in New Orleans, on a weekly basis, for decades, years and decades and even over a century, African music was practiced out in the open one day a week in New Orleans, in a place that's known as Congo Square. Keeping track of that is a good way to know about why jazz was born in New Orleans.